Alright, welcome back. In this video, we're going to go over how to study. Why is something that sounds so easy to do so difficult? Isn't that kind of interesting? Studying is a game. What do you mean by that? There are many ways to study. Think about every method, different type of method to study is a play style. You go to a casino, you see slots, you see blackjack, you see roulette, you see poker. What you try to do is you try to bet your money to what you're good at because you're trying to win money. Here's the same thing. You're betting your time studying and hoping to get a grade. That's the money you receive, that A+. That's the money. So studying is a game. So here's what we're trying to figure out here is we have to find out what your style is. What is your play style? What is the game that you like? So I want to present you with many different types of methods. And hopefully at least one of them sticks out to you, or many of them. You can try to incorporate all of them into your studying routine. Because my goal here is to make sure you get an A. I want you to have a really good future. If you want to become a doctor, I want to make sure that happens. If you want to become a rocket scientist or rocket engineer, I want to make sure that happens. So let's make a deal. If you legitimately try all the techniques I will list out in this video and they don't work for you, comment. Leave a comment in this YouTube video and call me out. Tell me that it did not work. I will personally respond to you and try to figure out what is wrong and what we can try to fix. If 1 million people actually watch this video and 1 million people actually comment, that means number one, I didn't do a good job. Number two, I made a deal. That's it. I made a deal. I'm saying it right here. If it doesn't work, comment, call me out. We'll try to figure out something. I do not mind responding to 1 million people. I will find the time. First, let me tell you my story. Why am I actually qualified to teach you this? Why am I qualified to actually teach you how to study? Well, I went to community college for 4 years. The first year, I did absolutely terrible. I was in an anatomy class, and I was getting C's and D's on the exam. Can you imagine? I want to become a doctor, and someone in anatomy getting C's and D's? That's ridiculous. That's horrible. It's because I did not know how to study. I went home after one of my exams and I cried because I was like, I feel stupid. What am I doing? I don't know how to fix this. Then I sat down and I really, really thought about it. And I was like, I need to change how I studied. And I want to tell you that method in the next slide. But first, so I finished community college with 106 units and a 3.9 GPA. So I basically got all A's after that. I transferred to UCSD, University of California, San Diego. Go Tritons. And I had to relearn how to study. The reason is because the format of education is different from here in community college. Here, we're on the quarter system, first off, so the classes take half as long and they're twice as fast. Also, it's a lot of material in a small amount of time, but there are not that many assignments. In community college, I had a lot of assignments where I can actually apply my knowledge. Here, you're really graded on your midterms and that's it. And now I'm studying for the MCAT. Let's do method number 1. Handwriting PowerPoints. If you were given PowerPoint lectures and the exam is based on those PowerPoint slides and nothing else, handwrite them. Word for word. I know this takes a long time. It does. I'm not going to lie. It does take a long time. But it's so worth it. Because just think about this. Think about it this way. The PowerPoint slides you're given already have all the test answers on them. If the exam is based on the PowerPoints, and he or she is giving you the PowerPoints, you already have the answers in front of you. So all you have to do is memorize them. So here's what I did in community college. I took physiology in my first year of community college. This was after anatomy. I took it in the summer, so it was fast paced. After every single lecture, I went to a Starbucks for 3 hours or 2 hours at night and hand wrote the lecture slides one by one. every single word, besides the graphs, but every single word I wrote word for word. It did take about 2 hours sometimes because the slides were about 90 slides long. But here's what I did, is I made sure I caught up. So what I did is I made sure I wrote the next day's PowerPoint ahead of time. So when I go to lecture, I already know what the professor's gonna talk about. If he or she were to ask me a question, I would already know the answer to it because I looked at the material the day before. But also this does another thing. You're in class writing notes. Your brain cannot focus on two things. Or really, it can, but not efficiently. You're busy writing on your notebook, whatever the teacher is saying, but the teacher's also speaking at the same time. How can you actually hear what that person's saying, what your teacher is saying, and handwriting? How can you actually process the information that your professor is trying to relay to you? This is why you come prepared. Handwrite the lecture slides ahead of time so when you go to lecture, all you have to do is just listen and try to connect what the professor is telling you to what you already written down the day before. I promise you this helps. Because when I did this, I ended up getting the highest grade in physiology ever recorded at my community college. I finished that class with a 99.4%. That means I literally got 100% on almost every single exam. I took those exams, those 60 question exams, in 20 minutes. I was just cranking them out because what this does is when you handwrite them, think about you're engraving it in your brain. You engrave it on your notebook, and as you're doing it, you're engraving it in your mind. It's so crazy how it works. You gotta trust me, it does work. And when you're in the exam, you can actually visualize you writing it on your notebook. You kind of remember exactly where you wrote it, what page you wrote it, and you kind of remember the words, the lettering you did. It's amazing, and I promise you this really helps. So after you write them out, you should at least look at what you wrote out 20 minutes a day. Just 20 minutes out of your time. When you're eating breakfast or lunch or dinner, just look at it for 20 minutes and remember what you wrote down. And try to understand what your professor said during lecture about that content. It will really help, I promise. And this was actually, so this is my method in community college. This is my notebook right here. Imagine this. So this is actually a PowerPoint slide, or many. So imagine this, but 200 pages worth. 200 pages of these. That was my physiology. And that is how I know physiology so well. I'm able to tutor it. I actually memorized basically the entire physiology book because of this. Method 2, getting more out of your practice problems. So when you're given practice problems, turn every wrong answer into a correct answer. What you're doing is training your brain to automatically sniff out wrong answers. The more you do it, the better you become at detecting them. This is a fantastic method for the MCAT, if you're studying for the MCAT. Got to think about this. How many possible questions can they really ask on the MCAT? You're given biology, you're given biochemistry, you're given chemistry, organic chemistry, sociology, physics. How many questions can they actually ask about those? There's a limited amount. It's not unlimited. You only learn so much. So when you're doing practice problems, one of those practice problems will probably come out the MCAT, but it's going to be one of those wrong answers. Like one of those wrong answer choices, they will frame it in a question on the MCAT, and then you're like, oh my god, I see how there's a resemblance here. This looks familiar. So let's actually practice. Which of the following is true? There could be more than one right answer. The right atrium contains deoxygenated blood. This is correct. It does. The aorta pumps deoxygenated blood to the lungs for oxygen pickup. This is wrong. This is not true. So, did I make it right? To make this right, it would be the pulmonary artery pumps deoxygenated blood to the lungs for oxygen pickup. Or I can actually write it as the aorta pumps oxygenated blood to the rest of the body for our cells to use oxygen. Sodium ions contribute to the resting membrane potential of the cell. This is correct. But in addition, potassium and chloride also contribute to the resting membrane potential. Enzymes lower the activation energy needed to turn substrates into products. If an enzyme is involved, the substrate always turns into the product. The first sentence is correct, the second sentence is not. So this is basically wrong. To make this right, if an enzyme is involved, the substrate sometimes turns into the product. The rate is called the turnover rate. How often does the substrate actually turn into the product? There's a ratio. It's a number. E. Harry Potter and the Order of Phoenix. That's not good. And the Order of Phoenix is the best Harry Potter film in the franchise. Sorry, but this is right. I'm sorry. I love Harry Potter and the Order of Phoenix. You can fight me in the comments if you disagree, but it is. Sorry. Method 3A, index cards. Works well, but is very situational. It's amazing at memorizing functional groups, like in OChem, and definitions, but it's terrible at graphs and large amount of concepts and material. This honestly did not work for me, but it may work for you. It definitely can. So what we usually do is like write out the functional group on one side, and then what it looks like on the other side, the index card. Or you can write a definition. I did not like this method. When I was in community college and currently at UCSD, I do not use index cards. I don't feel it's helpful. But what does help me is handwriting the content over and over again. Method 3B. Here's what you should do. If you have something you have to memorize, say concept 1 or whatever. So day 1, you're going to handwrite that concept 20 times. Day 2, you're going to handwrite that same concept 15 more times and start a new concept, which you're going to write 20 times. On day 3, handwrite day's 1 content 10 times and day 2's content 15 times. And then day 4 to all the way to test day, you're going to keep rewriting them and memorize them till test day. So here's the format. So let's say you have to memorize something. So day 1, you're going to write it 30 times. Yeah, 20 times. 30, 20, it doesn't matter. More the better. Say 20 times. Day 2, you're going to write it 15 times for a total of 35 times. In day 3, 10 more times, with a grand total of 45 times. You're writing a concept 45 times. That is enough for your brain, usually enough for your brain to actually memorize it. So this is exactly what it's going to look like. A smaller version of it. So I wrote carboxylic acid and I drew out what it looks like. And I did that over and over and over and over again. And then I did hydroxyl group. That's content number 2 or concept number 2. And I drew it out what it looks like. You're going to do this every single day until test day. This will basically engrave it in your brain, and it will help so much. Your brain is built to learn on repetition. So you got to use it to your advantage. If your brain was genetically designed to remember stuff based on repetition, you should use that. Method 4, go to office hours. If you have time, go to office hours. Your professor usually holds office hours, or your TAs or IAs. You gotta remember something, and this is what I love about this method. Your professor wrote the exam. He or she probably wrote the exam. I don't think the professor plagiarized the exam for someone. So they already know what's on the exam. So use it to your strength. So this is kind of dirty, but I mean, it's legal. You can definitely do this. Some professors will tell you the exact questions on the exam. My general chemistry teacher actually did this. So when I was in community college and I took general chemistry, my professor held office hours right before the exam. If you attended office hours, he will literally work out the problems that's going to be on the exam 1 hour from then on our office hours. He would give related problems with different numbers, but he would actually work it out and show you how to solve it so you're ready for the exam. So it's like a free A. Now, if your professor doesn't do that, use psychology. For example, if you have a genetics test, there's something called tri-hybrid crosses. You can tell your professor during office hours, hey, I've been really studying for this exam, and I've been stressing about it a lot. I was just wondering if I should use my energy on tri-hybrid crosses. I'm not sure if it's going to be on the exam or not. 9 out of 10 times, your professor will actually kind of feel bad for you and say, don't stress about it. It's going to be okay. I would focus on other things. If your professor says that, the tri-hybrid crosses won't be on there because he's not going to deliberately throw you off. That'd be a terrible thing to do if your professor actually said that. Imagine your professor said, oh yeah, it's not going to be on your exam, and then it ends up being on your exam. That's a terrible thing to do. Now, on the other hand, if your professor says, yeah, I would at least go over 1 or 2 problems on tri-hybrid crosses, that's your signal that's going to be on the exam, so you know what to study. So it's also a fantastic time to ask specific questions. Make up exam questions ahead of time, and then go to office hours and have the professor work it out. So it's kind of it's a little tricky, right? You're playing with them. I mean, I don't mean like playing with them, but you're basically making them solve the exam question for you. I mean, you're learning as well, but at the same time, you're kind of getting the answer from them. So you got to use it to your advantage. It's a resource at your disposal, so you should use it if you can. Method 5. Google interesting facts about whatever concept you are learning. So I try to draw Heisenberg, Walter White on the bottom right. If you like it, thank you. If you don't like it, well, I'm not an artist. I'm a neurobiology major. It is a fact that you tend to memorize concepts you like or find interesting. So make your internet your friend. So when studying, look up the concept and actually find interesting facts about it. For example, here's meth. Methamphetamine is a neurotoxin that damages the dopamine neurons and serotonin neurons in the midbrain. Isn't that kind of interesting? So what does this translate to? If you take meth, over time in high doses, you'll actually feel less happy. You'll feel less energetic, less happy, and less rewarding when you do something. Isn't that kind of interesting? So now you remember this. You remember that meth makes you sad and you shouldn't do it. Method 6, the Pomodoro technique. This is a technique you probably have heard. Your brain gets tired and bored fast. I'm not sugarcoating it does. That's just how it works. So let's improve that flaw. Study for 30 minutes and then relax for 5 minutes. And then you would do this cycle over and over again during your study session. But here's the thing. Make sure you put your phone as far away as possible. Because when your phone is next to you, you tend to look at it. I'm going to make you a little bet right here. If you're watching this video and your phone's next to you, how many times did you actually touch your phone? Be real with me. How many times did you actually look at it, check a text message, look at the home screen, do anything, turn it on, anything like that? That's my point, is that it should be far away from you as possible because it's a distraction. And when you get distracted, you forget things. Your phone is actually your worst enemy here. Now, when you get to your 5-minute break, go on your phone. That's fine. Or talk with a friend. But when that 5-minute timer is up, put that phone away. What you're doing here is training and improving your discipline. Discipline will get you a long way in school and studying. If you use this technique a lot, more frequently, you'll actually improve your brain. And this is a given fact. If you were to do this, you will gain discipline and you'll be able to go on for 60 minutes or even 2 hours without getting tired or bored. And you'll still be able to retain information. It's incredible how your brain works. Your brain loves learning. It likes to improve on itself. Isn't that amazing? So I try to draw spaghetti and pomodoro sauce, but, not an artist. So the Pomodoro technique is very common for studying for the MCAT, for example. You have a lot of content you have to cover. But when you start early, people are able to study for 12 hours straight. I'm not joking. People can actually study for 12 hours straight without getting tired or bored. How is that possible? It's because they're training their brain. They've been training their brain to do this. You literally become a superhuman when you do this. But you just got to take the first step. Method 7, which is the last method here, is teach the material to someone else. I memorized nearly the entire book of human physiology just by teaching it to students for 5 years. I have been a tutor for 5 years, 6 years now. I'm still tutoring. I can literally basically recite any topic from human physiology without looking it up. Because I've been doing it for so long, I've been teaching to students for so long, and I love doing it. Once you learn a concept, you should teach it to a classmate or even a friend. It can be whatever friend you want. It doesn't even have to be a friend in your class. I actually have friends back at home which I literally tell physiology facts to, and they actually find it quite interesting. And this actually helps me learn, but also helps them learn. Teaching someone actually improves your confidence, but it also improves your test-taking confidence. If you have test anxiety, which is a very common thing, this will help you. Because remember, when you're teaching someone, you're under a lot of stress. And I know what you're thinking. What happens if you teach the wrong thing? What happens if you get it wrong? That's a source of stress. That's the same stress that you're going to be under when you take the exam. So it's best to get it out of the way now. It's okay if you're wrong. It's completely okay if you're wrong. No one's going to judge you. It's okay when you teach someone if it's wrong. Maybe they'll try to help you improve. But when you get to the exam, you will know that you will not make the same mistake again. And your confidence increases exponentially. And that is why I love teaching. I am basically building my confidence for that MCAT. An 8-hour exam with so much content. I'm not going to lie, I am kind of scared about it. I am nervous. But by me teaching these concepts to you over the internet, I am building my self-confidence so I can take that MCAT, hopefully get a 528 and get into medical school and become an anesthesiologist. And I want that same exact thing to happen to you, whatever career you want. If you want to become a rocket scientist, if you want to become a doctor, if you want to become a vet, if you want to become a mathematician, if you want to become a teacher, if you want to become a lawyer, you want to work on trains or become a pilot, anything. I want this to work for you. So I hope that given all these methods here, at least one of them will work for you. And you can try to incorporate many of these methods into your studying routine. You don't have to just limit yourself to one of them. Try to use all of them if you can. And I promise you, you will become a superhuman. People will be jealous of your intelligence. They'll be like, wow, how do you get an A on this exam? It was so hard. And you're like, well, I just studied. I just learned how to study. It's all a game. You just gotta know how to play the game. You gotta make those cards into your favor. You go into poker, right? You're playing poker, for example. You get a hand that's terrible cards, right? Which is a terrible exam. You can bluff your way through. And you study. You study, you study, you study. And you will win that pot. You'll bluff everyone out of there, you'll shock everyone, and you'll walk away with $1 million, or your degree, or amazing GPA, whatever it is. I know you can do it. You just gotta take the first step. If you found this video helpful, please like and subscribe. And until next time, later.